Welcome to the deep dive. If you've been following the fertility journey for any length of time, you know the focus is often on timing and eggs.
Yeah, that's usually where the spotlight is.
But today, we are really flipping the script and diving deep into the critical, often fragile center of male fertility, the testicles.
The engine room, basically.
Exactly. We're calling this deep dive, Testicles and IVF, when male fertility starts in the testicles. Because, well, if the factory floor isn't running perfectly, none of the downstream processes matter much, do they?
That's absolutely right. And our mission today is to really unpack the entire system for you. We're looking at the constant challenges, the hormonal paradoxes, the environmental vulnerabilities, even the genetic hurdles that put pressure on sperm production.
Okay.
Then we want to pivot to hope, the genuinely powerful advances that IVF and assisted reproductive technologies offer, ways to overcome even the most challenging male factor issues.
Okay, let's unpack this then, starting inside the factory.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about spermatogenesis, sperm production, what is the sheer volume we are actually dealing with? And maybe more importantly, how long does it take for a new batch to arrive?
Well, the volume is staggering, really. A healthy male is producing sperm continuously. We're talking an average around 86 million sperm per day. It's an engine that just never stops.
86 million daily.
Yeah.
Wow. That feels like an endless supply. But if the body's cranking out that much volume, what percentage of those millions do we actually need to be viable for, say, IVF to succeed?
That's the critical question, isn't it? Quality matters way more than quantity here. I mean, naturally, you need hundreds of millions just hoping a few hundred make it near the egg.
Right, a numbers game.
Totally. But when we get to IVF, especially with techniques like ICSI, we might only need a handful of perfectly functional swine. Sometimes, literally just one good one to create a healthy embryo.
Just one.
The challenge, though, is finding that one and making sure it's the best it can be.
And that timeline for quality improvement is key then. It's definitely not instant, is it?
Not at all. This is where people planning a cycle really need to pay attention. Sperm take about, 64 to 72 days to fully mature. So if you change your diet, stop smoking, or, reduce heat exposure today...
You won't see the results tomorrow.
Exactly. You won't see the full benefits in your sample for over 2 months. It's a great reminder that, biology doesn't work on our impatient calendars. That 72-day commitment is almost 3 months of planning.
That delayed reaction time really underscores why lifestyle changes need patience. Okay, let's talk about maybe the biggest external vulnerability for the testicles. Heat.
Yeah, this is a big one. The testicles exist outside the body for a very specific reason. They demand thermal regulation. They absolutely need to be maintained about 2 to 4 degrees Celsius cooler than the core body temperature.
2 to 4 degrees cooler.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you introduce prolonged excessive heat, that's your daily laptop actually on your lap, your long hot tub sessions, maybe even really restrictive tight clothing day after day, you are essentially slow cooking the process.
Slow cooking. That's a vivid image.
Well, it kind of is. That heat directly impairs the DNA integrity inside the sperm. It reduces the count, and it definitely lowers motility, how well they swim.
Okay, so those are environmental inputs. Let's switch to the internal controls.
Yeah.
Hormones.
Yeah.
We hear so much about men taking supplements for vitality, often testosterone. How is it that the very thing they think helps, testosterone, is often the thing that shuts down their fertility? Feels really counterintuitive.
It's one of the biggest paradoxes we encounter in male fertility, absolutely. And it really comes down to a communication problem in the body. The sperm factory is regulated by 2 key hormones from the pituitary gland. FSH, follicle-stimulating hormone.
Okay.
Think of FSH as the factory signal telling the testicles, okay, start production. And then there's LH, luteinizing hormone, which is basically the testosterone trigger.
Right, the feedback loop system.
Exactly. So when a man takes exogenous testosterone, that's testosterone from outside his body, like supplements or injections, his brain registers those artificially high levels.
And thinks, we've got enough.
Precisely. It correctly interprets this as having plenty of testosterone and signals the pituitary to, turn off the FSH and LH production. No factory signal, no trigger signal.
So the whole production line just stops.
It often grinds to a halt. Yeah, it can result in very low counts or even a zoospermia, no sperm at all. So you might gain muscle mass, but potentially at the cost of your natural ability to conceive.
That really simplifies the hormonal control. Okay, so if heat and hormones are major inputs, let's talk about timing the output. Right before the main event, the IVF sample collection, what's the optimal abstinence window? Too much.
Yeah.
Too little.
Yeah, we're looking for a balance here. Too frequent ejaculation, say daily, leads to a lower quantity per sample, which isn't ideal.
Makes sense.
But abstaining for too long, generally more than 5 to 7 days, is actually detrimental too.
Hmm.
Because the sperm that are ejaculated are older, they've been sitting around, and they're significantly less motile. They've basically been waiting too long on the factory floor, so to speak.
Okay, so there's a just right period.
Exactly. Most clinics aim for that optimal sweet spot. Typically somewhere between 2 and 5 days of abstinence, often landing on 3 or 4 days. That usually ensures the freshest, most motile sample possible for the lab.
Got it. 3 to 4 days is the target. Now, before we move to roadblocks, our sources mentioned cell phones. I mean, we're all carrying them, often right in our front pockets. Is this modern tech actively threatening sperm health?
It's definitely an area of growing concern. The issue seems to be twofold. There's the direct heat generated by the phone.
Right, like a mini laptop.
Kind of, yeah. And then there's the radio frequency electromagnetic radiation, or RFEMR. Think of RFEMR as maybe a very low-level microwave heating effect right against the scrotal skin.
Okay, so what did the study suggest?
Well, some studies suggest that men who frequently carry phones specifically in their front pockets show lower sperm concentration and maybe reduced motility compared to those who don't. It's still being researched heavily, but it points towards a simple, potentially actionable change. Maybe minimize that direct contact, move the phone to a bag, or perhaps a back pocket when possible.
Definitely something worth thinking about. Okay, let's move on to segment 2 then. If the factory is running, what are some of the most common internal roadblocks, things that cause major issues?
Yeah, the roadblocks often come down to either structure or genetics. Structurally, one of the most common issues we see is something called a varicocele.
Varicocele, okay.
These are basically enlarged veins in the scrotum, kind of like varicose veins you might see in someone's legs.
Wait, I've heard that a huge percentage of men actually have varicoceles but are perfectly fertile. Is surgery, always necessary? How do we know when it's genuinely the roadblock causing the problem?
That's a really crucial distinction. You're right. Many men have them without any fertility impact. They only really become a fertility roadblock when they get large enough to significantly increase the local temperature around the testicle.
Ah, back to the heat issue.
Exactly. It disrupts that necessary temperature difference. So if we see a large varicocele and it correlates with poor sperm parameters in the semen analysis, then surgery, a varicocelectomy, is often considered. It directly addresses that heat issue and can sometimes restore healthier production.
Okay, so it's not automatic surgery. It depends on the impact.
Definitely. Beyond varicoceles, infections are another major issue. And often there's sneaky things like chlamydia, mycoplasma, ureaplasma. They can be asymptomatic, go completely unnoticed.
But still cause damage.
Yeah, they cause inflammation and scarring inside the delicate tubes that transport sperm. Think of it like hidden plumbing damage blocking the pipes. And even past infections, like having mumps that affected the testicles, mumps or orchitis, can cause long-term, sometimes permanent damage to the sperm-producing cells themselves.
Wow. And then you mentioned genetics. Those sound like maybe tougher hurdles.
They can be, yeah. The genetic hurdles are often about systemic production issues. Two major ones we look for are Klinefelter syndrome. That's a condition where the male has an extra X chromosome, so they're XXY instead of XY. This typically leads to smaller testicles and severely impaired sperm production, often azoospermia.
Okay.
The second group are Y chromosome microdeletions. There are specific regions on the Y chromosome named AZF, AZFB, and AZFC that are absolutely critical blueprints for sperm development. If key pieces of that blueprint are missing,
Production stalls.
production can be severely limited or completely halted depending on which part is missing.
Okay, so we've identified these potential issues. How do we definitively diagnose what kind of challenge we're actually facing? We really have to challenge that old myth that, size determines fertility capability, right?
Oh, absolutely. We must. Testicular size might give us a small hint sometimes, but it's the semen analysis, the spermogram, that gives us the real definitive answers. It checks the count, the motility, how well they swim, and the morphology, which is their shape.
The big three. And if those results raise flags, how do we look deeper into the engine room, so to speak?
We use a multi-pronged approach. First, there's the hormonal panel. This checks that whole regulatory system we talked about, FSH, LH, testosterone. But crucially, we also check inhibin B.
Inhibin B, what does that tell us?
It's a great biomarker because it's secreted directly by the Sertoli cells in the testicles. Those are the cells that actually nourish the developing sperm. So a low inhibin B level is a pretty direct indicator that the factory production line itself is struggling.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
Well, for structural checks, a scrotal ultrasound or Doppler is vital. That's how we find things like varicoceles or maybe cysts, tumors, or blockages.
Right.
And then for the really complicated cases, maybe where we see repeated poor IVF results despite decent-looking sperm or unexplained recurrent miscarriages, we might use sperm DNA fragmentation, SDF tests.
DNA fragmentation.
Huh.
So damage to the genetic material inside the sperm.
Exactly. It shows us the level of damage to the genetic blueprint inside the sperm head, often linked to something called oxidative stress.
That focus on the blueprint inside brings us perfectly to segment 3, the IVF solution. When we face these really severe issues, whether it's almost no sperm or high DNA damage, IVF often jumps to the forefront. What's the key technique that really revolutionized treatment for male factor infertility?
That would undoubtedly be ICSI, which stands for Intracytoplasmic Sperm Injection. IVF often becomes necessary when the male factor is so severe that natural conception is, well, nearly impossible. For men with extremely low count, really poor motility, or maybe lots of abnormally shaped sperm, ICSI is a complete game changer.
Okay, walk us through what ICSI actually does. How is it different?
It's incredibly focused, very precise. The embryologist, under a powerful microscope, selects a single, hopefully healthy-looking sperm. Then, using a microneedle, they manually inject that single sperm directly into the center of the egg.
Wow, bypassing everything else.
Completely. It bypasses all the natural hurdles the sperm would normally need to overcome, swimming through the cervix, getting through the uterus, penetrating the egg's outer shell. It just ensures the best possible chance for fertilization when sperm quality or quantity is severely limited.
Okay, but what if a man has azoospermia, like zero sperm in the ejaculate? Is there still a path to biological parenthood then?
Absolutely, there often is. First, we need to figure out why there's no sperm.
Yeah.
If it's obstructive azoospermia, meaning sperm is being produced just fine, but it's blocked from getting out, maybe from a past vasectomy or an infection.
A plumbing issue again.
Exactly. Then we can often retrieve it surgically. We can go into the epididymis, which is where sperm matures, using procedures like PISA, or directly into the testicles with teas. We just need to collect the finished product that can't get out.
Okay, that sounds relatively straightforward for obstructive cases. But what about the tougher ones, the non-obstructive azoospermia, like maybe those men with Klinefelter syndrome or the Y microdeletions we discussed? When the production itself is the problem, is there any hope then?
There is hope, yes, but it requires a much more meticulous process. This is often where microtease comes in. It stands for microdissection testicular sperm extraction.
Microtease, okay.
This is necessary when sperm production is severely impaired, but maybe not completely absent everywhere. We know that often, even in tough cases like Klinefelter syndrome, there might be tiny, sparse pockets within the testicle where some viable sperm are still being produced.
So it's like searching for them.
It's exactly like searching. The microtease procedure involves a surgeon using a high-powered operating microscope to perform a very careful, targeted search within the testicular tissue for these rare, viable sperm. It really is like looking for a needle in a massive biological haystack sometimes.
Incredible. And if they find them?
If we find them, even just a few, they go straight to the lab for ICSI.
Wow. So if the ultimate goal is getting that healthy genetic blueprint into the egg, and we know DNA fragmentation is a major threat, can we do anything to sort of pre-treat the sperm, or the man, I guess, before the cycle even begins?
Yes, definitely. We can try to reduce the underlying cause of a lot of that DNA damage, which is often oxidative stress. So before an IVF cycle, treatments often focus on optimizing the male's internal environment, primarily by using powerful antioxidants.
Like supplements.
Exactly. Our sources specifically point to things like zinc, coenzyme Q10, vitamin C, and selenium. These supplements may help protect the sperm's genetic code during its development and potentially improve the overall quality of the sperm we retrieve for ICSI.
That gives people actionable steps they can discuss with their doctor, which is crucial. Okay, let's wrap up with the big picture. Prevention and hope. What are the key health tips for just maintaining testicular health that everyone should probably know?
Right, good question. The first is probably stress management. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, and high cortisol, much like taking external testosterone, can negatively impact that delicate hormonal balance needed for healthy testosterone and sperm production.
Makes sense. What else?
Second, avoidance. Limiting smoking and excessive alcohol intake is really important, as both can accelerate testicular aging and directly harm sperm quality and DNA integrity. Third, physical protection, pretty straightforward. Use protective gear during high-risk sports and also perform regular testicular self-exams, just being aware of your body and noticing any changes early.
Good advice. And finally, there's that safety net we need to remember, fertility preservation.
Absolutely vital. Anyone, especially younger men, facing medical challenges that require treatments like chemotherapy or radiation for cancer, must seriously consider sperm banking before starting those treatments.
Because the treatments can cause infertility.
They can be incredibly damaging, sometimes causing temporary infertility, sometimes permanent damage to sperm production. Cryopreservation, freezing sperm, offers a critical safety net, a chance for future family building. But really, the core message today remains highly optimistic, I think.
How so?
Well, these modern advancements, from micro-Ts finding those hidden sperm to ICSI getting them into the egg, mean that almost every complex testicular issue now has a potentially viable pathway toward biological parenthood. It's quite remarkable how far we've come.
That is incredible progress.
We've seen we can bypass almost every physical or genetic challenge within the testicle itself. But maybe, the biggest hurdle remaining now isn't purely medical. It might be the culture around male fertility, the willingness for men to step forward, get tested early without shame or delay. That in itself feels like the final frontier in this whole journey sometimes.
Yeah, it's a really powerful thought to leave us with. Thank you so much for walking us through all the science and the, frankly, amazing solutions available now.
It was my pleasure. Glad we could dive into it.
And to you, our listener, please remember that this entire discussion has been exclusively educational and does not constitute medical advice. You should always consult a doctor or a fertility specialist for personalized advice regarding your health or treatment plan. If you're looking for more information about the complete IVF process, you can find that on the portal ivfforme.com.